Hey, this is Dave from MetalEpidemic.com. Thank you for checking out our YouTube video. Please feel free to hit the subscribe button below if you like this type of content, and we hope you enjoy the review. It's review time, gentlemen. And for this review, Duncan Kyle and myself have been checking out the new album from UK metal band Pupil Slicer. The band's new album Mirrors will be released on March 12th via Prosthetic Records. So, if you've never heard of this band, this is the debut album from this London three-piece. They've spent the last couple of years honing their craft, and then went into the studio to record the first album with Pedram Baliani of Frontier and Sectioned. He oversaw the production, and then it was mastered by Brad Boatwright at Audio Siege. Lyrically, Mirrors is a vehicle for vocalist Kate Davies to process and exorcise many painful and deeply personal experiences. Abuse, social anxiety and depression are experienced through the Pupil Slicer lens. So, first off, I did not realise this was the three-piece. When I was listening
to this... Yeah, you've just shocked me right now by saying that.
Yeah, first listen to this, I was like, oh, this is cool, this is really cool. And then I looked at the press release and I was like, wait a minute, there's three people creating this sound? No, that cannot be correct.
That's
surely not.
Right, that goes beyond physics, that does. Fuck you.
Yep. And I think vocalist slash guitarist Kate Davies in particular, because like musically this is pretty chaotic and disjointed, I can imagine playing stuff like this on guitar alone would be quite a challenge, but the fact that she's doing vocals as well,
yeah, I was wondering how they were going to pull it off live, because I was thinking the same thing. I was like, I could barely play that vocal line on its own without, I'd have to lay down to do it. And she's going to play that guitar and sing that at the same time, standing on stage. I'm like, I can't wait to see this. I hope I get to see them live.
Yeah, pretty impressive. As I said, production was done with Pedram from Frontier, and I can totally see why they've chosen to go with Pedram, because they do have a kind of similar type of vibe, in that musically it's very full on and like frenzied, not a lot of downtime to catch your breath on this album. And Frontier and Section both have that same type of like intensity to their sound. This album doesn't really let up at all during the 37 minutes or so runtime. And bands like Sectioned or like Fawn Limbs, there's a little bit of Pig Destroyer in there as well at times. It did kind of come to mind when I was listening to this. It has that kind of mathy, techie side, but it's blended with a bit of like chaotic hardcore meets kind of grindcore, that kind of aesthetic that gives it that kind of extra layer of hostility. And hostile, it pretty much is. Like these tracks just like hit one after another, completely just obliterating everything in their path. It's sonically a very abrasive and punishing sounding album. Not many of the tracks go above like 4 minutes, so they tend to kind of get in, do the business, and then it's kind of on to the next one. And to be honest though, even though a lot of the tracks are not much more than 3 minutes, they do seem to pack a lot into those tracks. There's a lot going on. Had either of you guys ever heard, I know this is like a debut, but there had been a bit of a buzz about these guys online on social media and stuff. Did either of you guys clock this at all? Had you heard the Pupil Slicer?
Nope,
not at all.
No.
The thing is, I would have remembered them, because I know I've complained about bands having like really crap names in metal recently, because we're just running out of names. But this one was like, yeah, that's a name I remember and a name I like, and a name that isn't just that explains exactly what the music is, that band name. So it would have stuck in my brain. But yeah, no, never heard of them before.
Never heard of them. What did you make of this debut from Pupil Slicer? Was it up your street? Duncan, do you want to go?
Maybe you need to say who you're speaking to, Dave. I really liked this. Interestingly enough, you mentioned a lot of groups, and I do hear that in there, but the kind of presiding band that struck to me was really early Dillinger Escape Plan. like specifically on is it Calculating Infinity? I'm trying to remember if that's the name of the. It reminded me a lot of that, but like just angrier, which is saying a lot. No, this is like the very definition of the kind of assault on the ears in the best possible way. The reason I was so shocked when you said there was a three-piece, they were a three-piece, is that the music has so much intensity and so much going on that to try and get my brain into any sort of working position where I can imagine three people making this much noise and going so far into the music, because the music like really is at times very sporadic. It doesn't really give you much time to really embed your if you were on the beach and follow me here, Dave. If you were on the beach, you took your shoes off, you took your socks off, and you wanted to try and get your toes nestled in the sand, the sand being their music, your toes wouldn't get a chance to get in there because it's like constantly moving. In fact, the sand is moving under your feet constantly, and you'd be kind of dancing on it, trying to. That's kind of what made me think of it. I'd like genuinely felt like there was at no point I could find any space to get comfort in the music when I was listening to it, and that generally is something that is quite off-putting to me when I listen. I like to be able to grab onto something, and you know the hook that brings me in. And Pupil Slicer go out their way for you not to have that, but I think it works to their benefit because it's not eclectic or eccentric for the sake of being that. If anything, it's all part of the package. The band's name, for a start, is one of those wince-inducing sort of ideas. If you've ever seen any movie at all where you've seen someone's eyeball be slit, and I'm a horror fan, so I've seen loads, it's always that one thing where you can instantly feel it without knowing how that would ever feel, because everyone's been poked in the eye, you know what I mean? Then you think it would be worse than that.
Just a little bit,
just a little bit, and then it fits the band really well because there's just a horrible, uncomfortable feel to just in general. But what I found is, even by the halfway mark, I was like the morbid curiosity to find out what was coming next, and every single song was there, so they had me hooked without giving me the hook that I wanted. I think the production on it is fucking brilliant. You can pick out it's chaos personified on a recording, but I can clearly pick out everything that's happening, and that's important because you can sometimes lose that very easily in the mix if the drummer's doing everything the drummer's doing here and the guitars are all over the place. But because they're a three-piece, which once again now makes sense, you need that in a three-piece. You need to be able to distinctly pick out the bass. You need to be able to distinctly pick out what the guitars are doing. Vocally, it's ferocious. Just like, once again, another vocalist who clearly gargles with not Listerine but sulfuric acid, because it's a very gnarly, gritty, horrible, disgusting tone, but fits the music perfectly. And it has no let up at all. I've listened to it twice now. I'll generally try and listen to albums between 2 or 3 times for the review, but it is so full on that I didn't want to listen to it a third time. That's not to say that I won't come back to it. I definitely will this year. I think there's a lot of merit in here. There's a gap in the market, I think, for bands that are doing this sort of stuff as well as they do. I think the whole noisecore or grindcore, whatever we're calling it, there are tons of bands out there, but I think that there's a lot of bands, and I'm throwing shade here, or shots fired. There's a lot of bands that just like make a lot of noise and don't spend any time on the construction of how a song should sound, even in that genre. Pupil Slicer have spent a lot of time making sure that their songs fit. And that's the one thing that struck out to me was, even though it's eclectic and eccentric and very abrasive and all over the place, there is, when you're listening to it, a very clear pattern how the songs are constructed, and it works very, very well. So yeah, I had a lot of time for this release, and on paper, I would be the one out of the 3 of us that I would imagine would have less time for it, but I found myself enjoying it quite a bit. So, and the fact they're from the UK, another fact I didn't know because I don't read the press statement, does my heart kind of good, because there's not a lot of bands in the UK doing this sort of stuff at this sort of level. So well done, guys. Really enjoyed it.
Okay, cool. Kyle, what did you make of this?
I mean, it started with the band name, and I was like, yes. And then I listened to the first track, and I was like, yes. So, I just carried on getting better and better. And the more I dug into it, the more I liked it. I don't understand how music like this, again, is made by 3 people. Like, what? But then it's understandable because in the production, you've got, one guitar on each side and everything, and it would have to be the same person to get that kind of those riffs and that construction of sounds and noises so tight. I don't think 2 people could realistically do that together. But so that makes sense. But on the other hand, there's no other hand. This is fucking amazing. And when I was listening to it, like, and when I was thinking about the production, I was like, my first reaction was like, this kind of sucks. The production, like. Everything was really like grimy and dirty, but I didn't think. And then I got more into the album and I took a look at it again, and I was like, you know what? This fits it perfectly. This is a production that is by no means perfect. It's by no means that. I mean, I don't want to say that good, but I mean, everything has its place and everything. It is a mix. Nothing's like too separated out, but it all blends perfectly together and just suits the sound of what they're going for and the message in the lyrics and everything so perfectly. It's whoever the producer was, I know you said it before and I've forgotten the name, did a fantastic job with this. Absolutely perfect. It's not produced within an inch of its life, and it's not overdone. It's absolutely what this kind of band, that's the sound they need. They need something that just sounds absolutely disgusting and grimy and covered in shit, because it's just that's what the music's about. And it works so well, and I just like they've taken such care over everything they've done in this. They've, like you said, they constructed the songs, they've got all their riffs and everything down, and they are played perfectly. The drums are great, everything, the bass solo, or the bass solo intro on the 3rd track, which is in French, I'm not going to try and pronounce it, is amazing. You don't see it coming, and it's just like oh, fuck on the bass, and I just loved it every second of it. So, but yeah, there's a lot to get picked through, and I had to listen to it a few times, but I think that's to its benefit, because you don't want to just listen to this once, but it's a good album. You have to listen to it a few times to get through all the stuff and find the accessible parts of what's there for you to listen to and everything, and then realize it's 3 people and go, what? No, and then put your guitar away and go back to bed.
No
fade outs that I remember. So.
No fade outs. It's a very it's very varied, like in terms of style and rhythm and tempo. There's a lot going on. They tend to keep you on your toes, with the back and forth of that kind of like mathcore. There's hardcore, grindcore in there, and as you said, it can be quite overwhelming at times, just because they throw everything at you, and they don't really linger on a particular riff for very long. But I think, like as you said, repeat listens to this does help with that a little. And there's a few kind of Code Orange-esque production ideas thrown in there as well. So those moments did help kind of break things up from time to time as well. For me, I really enjoyed it. I think I would have liked slightly more time spent with some of the more straightforward moments. Just like let some of the grooves breathe just a little bit longer. Like there's a really kind of chunky breakdown in that track. Is it Lapel du Vide?
See, Dave will pronounce it. He's not scared, Kyle.
I'll give it a shot.
I'm not scared. I'm just going to fucking murder it like this album murdered my ears.
And that groove, it lasts about 5 seconds, but I kind of wish they'd let it go just a little bit longer, because like the simplicity of it, of the kind of riff. I think that
goes with the message of their music too and everything. It's like good things in life are fleeting. Fuck you, the riff's gone.
Yeah, I totally get that. I totally get it. I just wanted a bit more. I was just like, let it run just slightly longer to get it, let it get its hooks into you. And on occasion they do let it go a little bit longer. Upon what was the track? Wounds Upon My Skin, another example of that. But I just wanted a kind of bit more of that spread out through the album. Sometimes less is more for me, and I felt like some of the riffs just could have been just kind of let go just that wee bit longer. And that's just personal preference. Similarly, they did sprinkle in some kind of echoey cleans on that same track, the kind of Lapel du Vide, and also a track called Husk. And I thought those moments really added another cool texture and element to their sound. again, I wouldn't have minded some more of that throughout the album. I think those moments really worked on the album. If I had any complaints, it would be, and it's kind of similar to what you said, Duncan. There's not a lot of hooks. There's not a lot of those moments that really like stick with you. I think like more of those kind of clean vocal parts would probably made a difference there. Would have created that extra kind of hook. But as you said, I think that's what they're going for. To be honest, just giving a little bit of it kind of makes you want it more. And I think those tracks I mentioned, along with Wounds Upon My Skin, were probably the tracks that I kind of gravitated to the most on the album. Production-wise, it's a tough one. For me, it was just okay. I didn't love it. I thought the mix was balanced. I thought you could everything was sitting well, you could hear it, but personally, I wasn't a big fan of the guitar tone. I can see what they were going for. It's very harsh and busy sounding, but it just felt a little bit too severe for me when I was listening. Just my personal taste. I didn't mind the kind of clean tone they used every now and again, or the a bit of lead work, and I didn't mind that sound at all. That sounded great. There's a track called Collective Unconscious where they kind of...
I've got to say, this band have a talent for naming things. Like the band, the songs. The song called Mirrors Are More Fun Than Television. Fucking brilliant. And Save the Dream, Kill Your Friends. I'm just,
Mirrors are more fun than television if you're having a wank.
Especially when you got a big spot on your cheek, right? You can't see Duncan's face, but he's like, yeah.
No. Yeah, as I was saying, the kind of clean tones and lead work, I thought that really worked on that Collective Unconscious. They kind of went into almost like a kind of post-black metal kind of territory on that track. But the kind of mathy, kind of grindy stuff, I don't know, the tone of the guitar, it was a little too gritty for me. I don't know, just personal preference again. Small kind of gripes aside, I still really enjoyed this. It's well, for a debut album, it's very well put together. I think they blend the styles very well, and technically they're very good at what they do. I was impressed with the musicianship on the album. I can 100% see the potential these guys have. I think, like, if you can imagine these guys like with some more miles on the clock, I think they'll be doing really big things. They've only been doing this a couple of years, so, and they sound great at the moment. So I can only imagine in another couple of years, I think they'll be absolutely killing this. It's a really enjoyable album. It's very intense. As you said, it's one that I listened to it and then I took a break from it. I listened to something else and I came back to it later on just because it's so kind of full on for the almost like kind of 40 minutes. But there's a lot of good stuff, a lot of stuff to like on this record. Rating wise, where are we sitting with Mirrors from Pupil Slicer? Duncan, what are you thinking?
It's a 4. It's a 4. I really liked it. Yeah, I thought, like I said, I would, interestingly enough, I would have thought from the three of us, I would have come in with the lower. Sort of, like just from, like, even from listening to the end of the first track, I was like, oh, that. But yeah, I think there's a lot in here to really, really get stuck into. And yeah, some of the issues that certainly you've raised are just not issues for me. I quite like the tone of the guitar. I think it worked really well against the tone of the vocals. It kind of paired off against each other. I think it's really good. 4.
Nice one. Kyle, what about yourself?
Yeah, same 4. Just everything worked really well for me. I just loved it from top to bottom, beginning to end, nice. Inside and out.
Nice one. I'm going to be the odd one out, unfortunately. I'm going 3.5 on this one. As I said, I enjoyed it. I just felt I needed a little bit more of a hook at times, and I had a little bit of an issue with the guitar tone on it. It just wasn't my taste, but still very enjoyable. 3.5 from me. If you want to check these guys out, facebook.com/Pupil Slicer. The album Mirrors will be released on March the 12th on Prosthetic Records. Be sure to check that one out when it drops, because it's thoroughly enjoyable.